Hello, so today we're going to talk about association in Rails. So our toolbox for today are to set up active record associations on models in Rails. We're going to use data from the associations inside of our view files. We're going to render a drop-down select tag in a form using the collection select helper from Rails. And we're also going to handle deleting an instance of a model that has other records associated with it using this line, dependent destroy. So we've already created in our House of Rails application the politician model. So our relationship in our app is a politician has many lies, and we've already completed the politician side. So today we were going to add in the lie part, that has many lies part. So I realized something. Let's run our Rails console. And if you remember when we were talking about pluralization and singularization, if we check pluralize on, if we call the pluralize method on lies or online, what do we expect? We expect lies. Sure, cool, that looks good. So now let's check lies.singularize. What do we expect? We expect lie, right? LIE. Nope. So because of this, we're going to run into issues when we set up our associations and stuff, and we would have to do extra configuration in order to get this to work properly. And so for the purposes of making this demonstration easier, we're going to rephrase our relationship to a politician has many statements instead of a politician has many lies. So if we check statement.pluralize, we get statements, cool. And if we check statements.singularize, we get statement. So this is, I think, more fitting for what we're trying to do today. So with that, let's get to it. So last week we were using a generator, a Rails generator called model in order to create our model and migration file for politician. Today I'm going to show you another command called Rails generator resource. And what you do is you pass in the new model, so statements, and then you pass in the attributes about a statement that you want a statement to have. So the resource generator is going to create for you a model, a migration for creating the table for statements, a statements controller, a views folder for statements, and that resources line inside of routes.rb in order to get all of our routes. So let's do Rails G resource statement, and we can pass in some attributes about a statement. So maybe we can say like declaration. It's going to be a string. We could say truth, make that a boolean. We could say also maybe like the year the declaration was made, so integer. And the final thing we need is, well, a statement belongs to a politician, and so a statement needs to know who its politician is. So we could say like politician ID, right? So we could do that indeed, but there isn't another way that we could do it to make it a little bit easier. So we could say politician references. So what this is going to do, this is going to create a politician ID column inside of the statement table. It's going to write in the statement model file that a statement belongs to a politician. And it's also going to set up the dependency in our database so that we can't have a statement without a politician. So you could say politician references. You will also see it as politician belongs to. Both of these ways of writing it are exactly the same thing and will produce the exact same results. So either one will work. So let's check out what it created. So first, if we go to our app folder and then we go inside of our controllers folder and look in here, we see we get a statements controller. Next, if we go to our models and we look at the new file that was created, we have a statement class and we have this line set up. And then we have this line that helps us set up our association. So a statement belongs to a politician. Next, we can go to our views and see that we have this statements folder, which is currently empty. Next, if we go to the config folder and we scroll down to our routes Ruby file, we get the resources line for a statement. So right now this has given us all 7 RESTful routes for a statement resource, but we're going to only be using new and create today. So let's specify that, new and create. Awesome. And then if we go into our DB file, we get a new migration to create a table for the statements. And here we see t.string declaration, t.boolean, truth, t.integer year, and then we get this line down here, t.belongs to politician, null, false, foreign key, true. So this is saying that a statement belongs to a politician. So it's going to give us that politician ID column instead of the statements table. And this is saying right here that the politician ID for a statement cannot be false. It cannot be null. It cannot be null. So it has to exist. It can't be empty. And it's also saying that the politician ID is indeed a foreign key to another table. So let's migrate and create some seeds afterwards. So Rails DB migrate. We'll get this migration code running. Awesome. Let's double check our schema. So create table politicians, name, position, age. Oh, looking at the wrong one. Statements, declaration, truth, year, politician ID. All right. Looks good. So let's create some seeds inside of our seeds.rb. So I'm going to put creating statements. And then next I'm going to say statement.create. And we'll create 3 statements. So we need a declaration attribute. We need a truth Boolean attribute. We need the politician ID. And we also need like the year that this declaration was made. All right. So let's create 3 of these. All right, so the first declaration, we can say maybe I am not lying, truth, false, year 1998, politician ID. Let's just go with politician.last.id. All right, second declaration. The capital of New York is New York City. Truth, false. Year that this was made, let's say like 2015. Politician ID, we'll go with the same politician. They're on a track record. And then the next declaration, I am not lying. Truth, false. This is kind of like a paradox, this one. Year 2020, politician ID, same fella. All right, and then I want to put one final puts down here. Finish creating statements. And I'll put an emoji. All right. So now let's seed, Rails DB seed. And we get an error. So let's see what our error is. What's the error? All right, so it started creating a statement, and now we get this error here, active record, unknown attribute error, unknown attribute declaration for statement. So let me see, did I spell this wrong? Declaration. Declaration. That looks right there. Maybe I misspelled it inside of my, yeah, I did. I misspelled it here. So we can change this. So if I say Rails DB migrate status, I see my create statements migration is currently up. So what I want to do is I want to take it down so that I can make changes inside of this file and then rerun my migration. So I can do Rails DB rollback. So this is going to take down this table. It's going to undo the last migration that we did. So if we do Rails DB migrate status, now my create statements migration is down, and we can really go in here and change. So declaration, we changed it, and now we can rerun our migration. So Rails DB migrate. So let me recheck the schema. So statements is there, declaration looks good now. All right, let me rerun the seeds now. So Rails DB seed looks good. And let's go to our console and check out our seeds. So statement.all, here we got all of our statements. And then because of the relationship that has been set up in our statement class, statement belongs to politician, we should be able to pull out one statement, right? So let's say s equals statement dot first. Gotta capitalize that. S equals statement dot first. And let's say s dot politician. And we should get back the politician instance, which looks like we do right here. Cool. And let's check the other side of this association, of this relationship. So if we say p equals politician dot last, we're storing Mojojojo. And if we see a p dot statements, we should get back a list of statements that belong to Mojojojo, but we don't. We get undefined method statements for politician. So if we look in the politician class, we see that the relationship here has not been described. So we had to go ahead and add that ourselves. So a politician has many statements. There we go. And so if we reload and we say p equals politician dot last, p dot statements, now we should get back our list of statements that Mojojojo has made, which were all of our seeds for a statement. So also, I don't think you've seen this before, but reload exclamation point. In Rails console, this command is going to reload whatever code you've written since the last time the console was loaded. So now I have two tasks for us. Two tasks. So the first task is I want to be able to display all the statements that a politician has made on a politician's show page. So we need to go to the views, to the politician show view. And in here, I want to be able to show all the statements that a specific politician has made. So how can we do that? We just saw down here like how we can get all of a specific politician's statements, right? We were saying at politician dot statements, statements, and we were getting back all the politician statements in an array. So we can iterate that using each. So that each do, do, so we'll iterate over every statement. And we can print out some information about that statement. So maybe we could do statement dot declaration, and then we could specify whether this is true or false. So we could say, oh, my ERB tags are coming all funky. Statement dot truth in parentheses next to the statement. And the block. Cool. And we could also even like specify the year the statement was made, right? So maybe statement.year. And another thing about what we've learned so far. So right now, by doing this, we're accessing the model directly. The controller needs to be in charge of pulling out all the statements first for a given politician. So we need to go to our politician controller, and inside the show page, we should create an instance variable called statements and interact with the model in here. So at politician.all. So we're gonna like stick with that MVC pattern by doing this. So here, instead of at politician.statements, we'll just be saying at statements.each. Cool. So let's run our server. So loading, looks good. All right, so we could go to localhost 3000. Yay, we're on Rails. And if we go to localhost 3000/politicians, here are all the politicians. This is the index page for the politicians resource. Let's go to Mojojojo. All right, and we get an error here. So undefined method all. Oops, so I shouldn't have written a politician at all. I should have written a politician.statements. That was an error on my part. So at politician.statements, not at the all. I'm trying to get all of these statements from one politician. All right. So here we have it. Cool. So let's go to our show page and just add some spacing in between each statement. So I'll do a BR tag. And then I'm also gonna put these above these two, the button and the link, just to make this look a little nicer. A little bit, a little bit nicer. So down here, and then we'll also add a horizontal line with this HR element. There we go. And we could even add like a header and say statements. When we completed the first task, we were able to display all the statements for a politician on the politician show page. So the next task is I want to be able to make a new statement. So if we remember, in order to allow a user to create a new statement, a new type of something, we need two routes. We need the new route and the create route. So the new route is in charge of returning the form to the user on the browser. And then the create route is in charge of handling a post request that is made when the form is submitted. If we want to access the new the form to create a new statement, we want to be able to make a request to /statements/new. And we get this error. The action new could not be found in the statements controller, unknown action. So this means that it did recognize the route. We do have a route in our Rails application, but it couldn't find the new action inside of the statements controller. So let's go to the statements controller and go ahead and add in that new route, the new action. And while we're here, let's also add in the create action that we're going to need later. All right, so if we refresh this, now we get a different error. So no template called new. So let's go to the views. Let's go to the statements folder. Let's right click, new file, new.erb, enter. And inside of here, let's add a header. We could say, create a new statement. So let's refresh this, make sure this works. It does, cool beans. And this is going to be very similar to the new form that we created for a politician. So let's go to the politician's new form, and let's copy the form we already created. Copy. Cool. So if you remember, if we think back to like when we were making that politician, we needed to pass down an instance variable of politician that was kind of like a blueprint for a politician, an empty politician. So we need to do something similar also in order to create a new statement, right? So we're going to create an instance variable called statement, and we're going to say statement.new. So this is just like we can think of it as a blueprint of a statement that we're passing down to the new form. So when this form with method that we get from Rails sees that we're getting some blueprint of a statement, Rails is going to know that this form is going to be for creating a new statement. And so therefore it's going to know that it should make a post request whenever the user submits this. So let's go and change up the labels according to what is required to make a statement. So for a statement, we need a declaration, right? So we can say declaration for the label. For the text field, also declaration. Let's see how this looks. So here we have it. For a statement, we also needed the truth field. We also needed the year field, and this is a number. This is an integer, so we can say number field. We don't need age. And the last thing we need is the politician ID. Politician ID. Politician ID. So let's see how this looks. And our button right now says create politician. Let's say create statement. Create statement. Cool. So let's inspect our form really quick. Just take another look. So here's our form. So Rails knows that when this form is submitted, we need to make a post request to /statements so that the new statement is actually created in our server, in our Rails application. Again, we get this authenticity token that's going to help prevent CSRF attacks. Then we get our label and input elements for all these fields. So for politician, if we wanted to create a new statement and we had to tell it like which politician the statement belongs to, we would have to remember the ID of the politician. And this is not very user friendly. Who's going to remember the ID of a politician? Nobody. So we need to make this more user-friendly. So we could also create a drop-down here for a politician so that we can view like all the politicians' names, and a user would be able to just like select the name of the politician who made the statement. So I googled Rails dropdown, and let's see what the internet suggests about how to make a dropdown in Rails. So if we click on this first, Stack Overflow, how to have a dropdown select field in a Rails form. So they're trying to do something similar to us, right? And then there's this answer that talks about collection select, but they also point us to the Rails documentation. So let's go to the Rails documentation. We're looking at this collection select method that we get from Rails, and it takes in all these arguments. So an object, a method, collection, value method, text method, options, HTML options, and it explains it all here. And then it gives an example of how to use it. So let's look at the example. So in their example, they have a class post and a class author. An author has many posts, and a post belongs to an author. So if we were thinking about how this relates to what we're trying to do, the author class would be like our politician class, and the post class would be like our statement class. So a politician has many statements, and a statement belongs to an author. All right. And so for when they're using collection select, they're first passing in the post object, and then they're passing in the author ID. So let's look down here like how this maps to the HTML that's returned. So the post matches to like here, the author ID matches to here, right? Then author.all matches to all the different options that a user can select in the dropdown. So these ones are a little trickier, ID and name with initial. These two arguments are a little trickier. So these two are methods that can be called on each instance of an author. So as they're looping through the array of all authors, they're going to call .id on each author, and they're going to store each author's ID as the value attribute for an option. And also, they're also calling this name with initial method on each author, and they're putting each author's name with initial as what's being displayed on the browser to the user. And as you can see, like this method, it's inside of their author class. It's a custom method here, helper method. And all they're simply doing is printing out like the initial of the first name and the last name. And then this prompt true. Final argument is optional. This is just like this option here, which we don't need. So let's go ahead and like copy this and see how it would work in our situation. We need to put this in ERB tags. There we go. Okay. And let's just go in and like replace these arguments with arguments that make more sense for our application. So instead of post, this is going to be a for statement. Instead of author ID, this is going to be politician ID. Politician ID. So whatever value like is selected from the dropdown, whichever politician is selected in the dropdown, is going to be stored as the politician ID for the statement. All right, so now the dropdown needs to know what are all the options going to be. So politician.all is going to give us all of the options for the dropdown. And the value that we're going to want to like store in our params about the politician, about like what's selected in the dropdown, is going to be the ID for the politician. And then the next thing is like, what do we actually want to be displayed in the dropdown? So when the user clicks on the dropdown, what are they going to see? So this method is going to be called on each politician. So each politician has a named method that can be called. So let's just say name. So their name is printed out. So let's keep this for now and then we'll remove it. Let's just go ahead and refresh our app and see how this looks. Cool. So we get politician, please select Donald Duck, Jane, Modododo. Cool. And then let's go ahead and remove this prompt true. And if I refresh, you see now the please select is gone. I personally prefer this way. Whatever way you prefer is the way you can go. And let's double check our form. Now with this drop down, form open. So here's the select element that this collection select action view helper created for us, and as well as the option elements. And so we see like the value for the options are the ID of each politician. So Donald Duck has a value, has an ID of 1, Jane has an ID of 2, Modododo has an ID of 3. And whichever option is selected is going to be stored in the params inside of the statement hash as the politician ID. And then to truth. So actually, we could do a drop down for truth, or we could also do, let's switch it up a little. So there is another type of field we could use called checkbox. And if we refresh this, it's just a checkbox and we can check or uncheck it. So we could use that. If it's checked, it's going to give us back a value of 1. And if it's unchecked, it's going to give us back a value of 0. And in computer science and programming, 1 correlates with true and 0 correlates with false. So we can get that Boolean value that we require. Let's also look at the HTML for this. So it's going to be an input element of type checkbox. Inspect. All right, so it's an input element of type checkbox, and it's going to be stored inside of a statement hash, in the statement hash as the key with the key of true inside of the params. So again, if it's checked, the value is going to be 1. If it's unchecked, the value is going to be 0. So let's go to our controller and put in a bybug inside of the create action. So whenever we submit the form, the browser is going to be making a post request to /statements, and the logic to handle the post request to /statements is going to be handled by this action. So let's try to create some statement. Let's see. The capital of the USA is North Carolina. I don't know. This is not the truth, so I'm not going to check this. This statement was made in 2008, and it was made by Donald Duck. Let's click create statement. So we should be hitting our bybug, and we do. And let's look at our params. Cool, so these are params. Let's look at the params at the statement hash. So we get declaration, truth, 0, year 2008, politician ID of 1, permitted false. If we want to use mass assignment, we need to take strong params into consideration, right? So to do mass assignment, we first need to require the key statement. We need to tell Rails like, hey, in our params, we need there to be a parameter called statement. And from there, we can permit whichever values. This should not be brackets. These should be parentheses. All right. And then from there, we can permit whichever attributes we want to allow in. So declaration, I'm going to say also truth and year. and politician ID. So now if we enter that, we can see that all of these attributes inside of the statement hash are permitted. And so we can now use this statement in order to create a new statement. So we can say statement dot create, pass in this line, and bam. So the statement was created. It inserted into the statements table declaration, truth, year, politician ID, and it inserted the values that we typed into the form. So the capital of the US is North Carolina. This is not true. 2008, politician ID of 1. And you can also see like the object was returned down here. So we got a statement with an ID of 5, the declaration that's a string, the truth, it's false. So we got our Boolean there, the year 2008, politician ID of 1, which is Donald Duck. Let's copy paste this into our application. I'm also going to remove that bug. And again, like we got this super long line of code right here. And if we were going to be building up our app more, we may use those params more often. So why don't we make like a private method called statement params, and then private method called statement params, and inside of there just return this line, which we can then call inside of here. Okay. After the form is submitted and we actually create the new statement, we need to redirect. And I think it would make sense to redirect to a politician's profile page, right? And the reason why is because I think the user should be able to see the results of creating that new statement. And in order to view the new statement that was created, they have to go to the politician show page. So I'm going to say /politicians/ and then I need to pass in the ID of the politician that created this statement. So I want to store the new statement that was created inside of this statement variable. And if we remember from at the beginning of lecture, we saw that a statement can access the politician it belongs to. We can say like statement.politician and get back that politician object that it belongs to. So we can say like statement.politician.id, for example. So let's test this out. Let's go to our new form. Let's make a new declaration, a new statement. So Rails rocks, this is the truth. And we made this statement in 2020. And Janie made this statement. So let's create this statement. And we're taken to Janie's profile page. And we see the statement right here. She made a true statement in 2020. So let's go back to statements.new. Cool. So let's go to the index page, politicians. We're at our index page, and let's say we go to Donald Duck and we want to delete Donald Duck. What's gonna happen? So if we try to delete Donald Duck, we get this error: active record, invalid foreign key, and politician's controller destroyed. Constraint exception, foreign key constraint failed. In line 42 of the politician's controller file, we hit this politician.destroy. So let's go to politician controller. Let's look at that line. Line 42. So this is inside of the destroy action. So when we hit this line, we got an error that we couldn't delete the politician. So the reason why that is because we set up that association between a politician and a statement. We said that a politician has many statements and a statement belongs to a politician. And so without a politician, the statements associated with that politician should not exist. So when we delete a politician with statements, we got an error because Active Record knows that certain statements depend on that politician's existence. So we need to handle that if we want to be able to delete politicians. So one way we could do this is by, first finding the politician and then deleting all the statements of the politician. So politician dot statements dot destroy all. And then once all the statements are deleted, now there's nothing depending on this politician to exist. So then we would be able to destroy the politician. So let's test this out. So let's go back to Donald Duck. Let's delete him. And so now it works. So we could do that, but there's also another way to do this. Another way that's a little simpler. So if we go to the politician class code, we have here has many statements, and we could add this line dependent destroy. So what this line is saying is that whenever we try to delete a politician, all the statements that depend on the politician that we're trying to delete are going to be destroyed first before deleting that politician. So if we go back to politician's controller, you can see I commented out this politician.statements.destroy all, so it's back in, so the code is like back to its original state in here. And if we try to delete Jane, it works. So you could either go through this route, or you could add this line. Either one is going to work. And with that, that's the gist of associations in Rails. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.